Welcome to Team Peri's Step Out of Line podcast, featuring co-hosts Peri and Lori Finkelstein. Together, they explore, meet, and share inspirational stories with guests who have made a positive impact in today's world. This podcast resonates with our hope to make this world a better place one step at a time through love, acceptance, and uplifting conversations.
Toby Tanser, who has many titles, running coach, running star, athlete, an author, motivational speaker, and of course, as everybody know, we run for Team Lifeline, High Lifeline every year, and he is our coach, our personal coach, and I know what he has told us before every race has stuck with me, not only during the race, but throughout the year after year. I remember in my mind what Toby says to us. So we want to shout out and say a big hello to Toby. Hi, Toby. How you doing?
Hi. Thank you. And I'm honored. I've always been honored to be involved with Team Peri. And so I'm really happy to be here today.
Oh, so
you're my heroes.
Oh, well, besides everything that we love about you, what we really appreciate is the past couple of years, Peri crossing over the finish line, and she's been doing this this will be her 10th year. You're always by her side, and you're always cheering her on, even though you could possibly finish literally hours before us, the marathon. You're always waiting for Peri and coming back for her. What has drawn you to Peri over the years that you say, this is not something I'm going to miss?
It's the fuel from seeing somebody take impossible into possible is, something that fuels you for the rest of the year. So those memories I get, in my darker moments or whenever I question myself on some challenge, I think of what Peri does, and it gives you no excuse to say, oh, I can't do this or I can't do that. So it's just a good reminder of the resilience of the human soul.
And you're always so kind when you do the marathon by our side, because you have also done it by our side. And we're dragging you down. We're doing, if we're lucky, like a 14-minute mile at the end of it. And you're just so happy to be walking with us and taking part of it. And that means a lot to us because...
No. It's a blessing to be there. And as I say, I'm the person that gets the most out of it. And I think everybody, when you walk in that group, the passion and the feeling there, and Peri is a hero to us, so I think you should sell tickets to actually be in that group.
It's a very emotional experience, I think, when you go through it. So as we told you, we're doing a series on stepping out of line, how people step out of line in their lives and do something great and amazing that they perhaps never thought possible, but push themselves to do it. You've done so many amazing things in your life. I know Shoot for Africa is a huge, huge accomplishment for you as a nonprofit, and creating all of this buzz and excitement over it, and getting a hospital built in South Africa. Africa or South Africa?
East Africa. It's in Kenya.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with the Africa.
Don't worry.
Not good at that. But it's just amazing what you've accomplished. Can you tell us at what point in your life have you stepped out of line, and what is the most memorable thing that you've done? That I know you've probably done it many times, but is there anything particularly you could think of?
No, definitely. And I think my parents obviously were very, very big influences in my life. As Team Peri embodies that. It's a family that often makes a person. And I grew up with parents that were a little bit different from most other people's parents. And they were always telling me, be yourself, discover yourself, do things differently. And so it gave me the confidence. And when I was 15 years old, I was sitting in an English class, and we were learning about Othello, a William Shakespeare play. And the teacher, who was a relief teacher, not our regular teacher, was telling us, if you want to pass the year-end exams, we go to the bookshop and buy a book that will give you all the previous questions that have been asked as exam questions, because the chances are they're going to be asked again. And the class was called Creative English. And I remember being the class clown, saying, what's creative about that? Finding the bookstore. For me, it just sounded like the most dead-end thing that we should do. rather than actually to try to find our own answers or something. But as fate would have it, I got thrown out of the class, and the teacher took me out into the corridor. And she was telling me, oh, if you're so clever, why don't you actually go and find the answers yourself? Why are you then wasting time in the classroom if you think you're so clever? So I took it as a challenge, and I ran away from home, and I went over to Amsterdam with a friend of mine. And we decided, because I'd seen these stories about these painters and writers who went to discover their life in Europe, that this sounded like a good place for me to start off. But it wasn't, because I realized all the stuff that I'd got my confidence from was from the security of the family and from being in that home environment. So it was a time when I stepped out of line, but it also was a time that I actually realized stepping out of line puts you into a different circle of things, and be appreciative of what you've left behind. So I stayed in Europe that summer. And then when I came back, my parents were actually moving house, and they were moving to a different city. So really as well, I stayed behind, and it was kind of like the kickoff that took me on my own path in life. So I stepped out of line, but I also learned a lot by doing it.
When did you realize that you wanted to be a runner and that running was your gift?
Well, that was I grew up in this theater philosophy center, and life was just fantastic. I had the whole theater a lot of the time the theater wasn't being used. So I could play in the props rooms. I used to jump around the stage. I used to dress up in all the costumes. And, there was a cafeteria where I could just steal all the snacks I needed. Yeah. I lived the life fantastic. But the theater world, there's a lot of sitting around doing nothing, waiting, rehearsing your lines. And I would get bored and frustrated. And I felt like the rest of the world was progressing, but I was moving very slowly. And this was amateur dramatics. Not everyone is Leonardo DiCaprio, or, this is I wasn't going to become a film star or anything. This is just local amateur theater stuff. And I wanted to do something more than just hang around the theater and have fun. And so I kept on thinking, like, what do I want to do? And I could see everyone else progressing and me staying in this same sphere. And I thought, I was around 20 years old, and I thought, I don't want to wake up in 20 years' time and still be doing this same thing. And then as fate would happen, one day I was watching the television with my girlfriend, and coming across the screen, I saw a friend of mine from 10 years ago when I ran as a school kid. And I was like, my goodness, what's he doing on the television? And sure enough, he'd become a famous runner, and he was running in the Commonwealth Games. And at this time I was a cigarette smoker, and I was smoking 40 cigarettes a day. I was very unhealthy, and, but living my fun theater life. And to see him doing this, I tried for a long time to quit smoking because I knew it was a bad thing, but I was addicted to the nicotine. But right now, watching him, I crumpled up my packet of cigarettes, which was pretty inconsiderate because the girlfriend smoked the same brand as me, Marlboros. So I crumpled up the cigarettes and said, I want to run. And I realized running was what was going to take me figuratively out of the rut. So I started jogging, ran down to the street, ran around the park, and I just fell in love with running. And, I hadn't ran for 10 years, but those feelings, the fact of when you're doing something sporty, you release endorphins inside your mind. And it just told me, yeah, this was how you're going to change your life. This is how you're going to get out of this rut. And so purely by, a twist of fate, I started running.
And your wife is a runner too.
She is. And she comes from the special Kenyan tribe, which is a very, very small group. And it's actually a select clan of the tribe of the runners, the Kenyan runners. So yeah, her cousin is the most famous runner that's run under 2 hours for the marathon, which is the family record.
Right. Wow. So that's a great story. There's so much we don't know about you, Toby, that we're going to have to just sit down for like a couple of hours by the pool in Miami and find out about if we could get you there. So that's pretty incredible. Perry's like in awe right now. How did you start? How did you come up with the idea that you wanted to fundraise for a hospital in Africa and that you would be able to do it. Like, that is a very big undertaking. How did that come to you? And then you said, this is, you know, did you have the idea and then you just pursued it, or how did that happen?
Well, again, I can't take any credit because everything I've ever done by my life is by mistake or something, happening coincidentally. And through running, I started to learn about Africa, and a friend of mine literally dragged me to Africa to go to learn from the Kenyans, to go and run with the Kenyans. And I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay in America, because not stay in America. This time I was living in Sweden. I wanted to go and train in America because they have electricity, they have running water, they don't have diseases, they don't have despair and droughts and all these stuff that I'd read in the press about Africa. And he was saying, no, you have to go to Africa. So I just agreed, and it was some weird coincidence that when I was a child, I got a bag from Eldoret. And so when he mentioned the name Eldoret, I was like, I've heard of that town before. And I only remembered the name because it sounded like El Dorado. And as a child, I was fascinated in cowboys. So I wanted to learn about these African cowboys. So I thought this funny coincidence that I remember the name of the town. Now he's telling me, go and train in this town. So I went over to Africa expecting to learn to be, the fastest, best, quickest runner I could. But when I went over there, I saw all these things that were going wrong, that I thought that I could do something to help. And I thought, why am I trying to concentrate on just something, which is running for me, which is a pleasure and a hobby, when I could be doing something that could be meaningful and purposeful? So I started giving away running shoes. And that was only because it didn't cost me anything, because I was sponsored then. I used to get free shoes from Nike. So I thought, okay, well, all I need to do is just give away this stuff that I'm being given, and I'm going to feel good myself for doing it. So that's how I actually got into charity. And then one thing led to the other. Then I started to do other things with different things. And then one day there was a terrible situation in Kenya when it was almost like a mini Rwanda, where two tribes were fighting against each other, and the whole country exploded. There was a lot of reasons why, land and presidential votes and things. But long story short, I met a lady whose child was burnt alive, and the child was thrown into a church. She actually escaped out of a burning church. She got a child outside, and then the mob threw the child back into the burning church, where about 35 to 50 ladies had burnt to death. And I was speaking with the mother, and the mother was saying there is a meaning why this happened. And I was telling the mother there is no meaning why this happened. But again, coincidentally, I was attacked myself in Africa on the beach, and an Indian doctor told me that same sentence. So it always stuck in my mind, because in the West, when something bad happens, we just think something bad has happened. But in Africa, and in the traditions of the people that I was talking to, they said there is always a meaning why something happened. And I struggled to find that, but the fact that these two sentences came the two times in my life, that my mind was all confused, and I was wondering, how do I help this community who's had a church burnt down their center of their community, with all these ladies and children dying inside the church through hatred. And I went into town and sat down in a coffee shop, and I was drinking a cup of coffee, trying to think what's going on. And a friend of mine who was substantially well-established businessman, a Dutch businessman who built a training center and things like that, he came in holding a proposal, and he was about to throw the proposal away, because he said, can you imagine, I was wanting to help. I'd asked the local doctors, and I was expecting to help with a $200 or a $500 donation, to help something, and they've given me a multi-million-dollar project to build a children's hospital. So he was about to throw the proposal away. It was nothing for him. But again, I thought back to all the things in my life. And on this morning of all mornings to receive this proposal, I thought, why don't I do it? So that's how I started.
Wow. Yeah, it seems like, did you meet your wife also, like it just happened and it was meant to happen kind of thing?
That also was it was by fate. She was in a T-Mobile store complaining about having a bill. And by chance, the CEO of T-Mobile happened to be inside that one store at the time. So the lady behind the customer service desk said, well, if you got a complaint, now's your chance. Why don't you go and talk to that man over there, because he's a big boss of T-Mobile. So she went across and she started talking to him, and he said, where are you from? And she said, oh, I'm African. He said, where in Africa? And she said, oh, I'm Kenyan. He said, oh, a friend of mine is building a hospital in Kenya. And so it was like, wow, so she also was saying, like, where in Kenya is it? So he said, it's in Eldoret. And she said, wow, I was born in Eldoret. So she said, I want to see where this crazy white person is building a hospital in my hometown. And by good luck, I was flying from America and she was flying from America within 3 days. So we met actually in the Eldoret airport, and I took her to the site. When I took her to the site, she was born half a mile from that site.
Wow.
And I thought that was a coincidence till the next trip. She said, I want to show you where my late father was born. She said he was a very, very poor man. He was born in a field in the middle of nowhere. He didn't go to school till he was 16 years old, the first time he ever went to school, but he rose and he became a prominent politician in Kenya. So we drove about 90 minutes into the rural bush, from the tarmac roads, the dirt roads, from the dirt roads into the paths, into the middle of nowhere. But when we got to the middle of nowhere, all the little kids were coming and running up to our car and screaming, hi, Toby. And she's like, how on earth do you know these people around here? And 1 mile from where I built my first school in Kenya, her father was born in a field. So sometimes things, they all tie together.
It was meant to be.
Yeah, I think as you get older in life, you start to see all the threads come together, and you see that life is a series of paths of steps, and things make sense. And there's choices you make, and sometimes you go off the path. And as Peri says, when you step off the path, often, doors open, you go off the line, sorry. So, but there's always a guiding line that always brings you back to the path where you're supposed to go.
Right. In Jewish, it's called bashert, B-E-S-H-E-R-T, bashert, meaning it's just meant to be.
Absolutely,
so
yes.
Your bashert, you were always meant to find her and always meant to be with her. All the roads in your life had led you to where you were going to meet her, which is a really
and
nice.
And like we're supposed to meet now. I think it's the world is very connected.
Yes. Speaking of being connected, how did you start with Team Lifeline? Like, how did you become the coach of Team Lifeline? Because here we are, a bunch of literally overweight Jews running, most of us, and here we have you, beautiful Toby, who's giving us hope that we could actually do it. And we actually listened to you and your tips. So how did you start with us?
No, it's a good question, because when, again, I came to live in America around the year 2000. And when I arrived in New York, I had a very traumatic time. I lost all my possessions. And I decided that I was going to stop running. And especially I was recovering from brain surgery.
Right.
So I needed to pick my life back together again. But I thought, let me do some coaching, because that was a skill that I knew that I could do. And then I started doing local races in Central Park, just because I couldn't travel and my head was feeling weird. But I started winning a lot of races. And so I got a presence inside the city. And I before long, I was coaching about 4 or 5 different teams. And I was coaching a state university and lots of individuals. And then I was coaching for the New York City Marathon has lectures. And, you got 600 people coming to sign up for the marathon who want some beginner tips. And so I just really immersed myself in the local running scene in New York. So when Team Lifeline called up, can you still hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. When Team Lifeline called me up, and they'd got the recommendation from the Roadrunners Club that I was a good coach. But because I was so busy, I told, I think it was Ari that I was talking to, I said, I'm sorry, I can't do it because, I've got too many obligations. But then he gave the phone to Moshe. And as you know, Moshe is like a tenacious bulldog.
Yes.
So he called me up not once, but twice, and said, please, just do it 1 year. And if you don't like it, then, fall out, leave us, whatever like that. And as you know, anybody that gets involved in Team Lifeline, it's an irresistible team. You just can't stop being involved. It's such a fantastic team of people. So that's how I got involved a long time ago.
Well, we're so happy that you are a coach, because it means a lot to us, and you not just coached us, as I mentioned, for that time, but you also coach us throughout the year, and we really listen to your stories, and all of us, my whole family, we say, yep, I remember Toby said that throughout the year, whenever, it's related to what we're talking about. So you're always our coach, not just once a year.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. One more question. What? Oh, yes. Peri wanted to ask, what are you recommending when people are training with masks? Are they wearing masks while they're running, or is that a problem?
First of all, I'm recommending everybody tries to do exercise, but to scale down, to do less than they're doing normal times. And I suggest, once, if you come in within, 3 or 4 meters of anybody, then you use your mask. But if you're in a place where there's no droplets, there's no, anybody close to you, it's very hard to exercise at the same time as wearing a mask. And maybe then it's better to have the mask with you, but not to put it over while you're actually exerting any effort.
Sounds good. Do you think we'll be wearing masks in January at the marathon?
I'm hoping and praying every day there's going to be some fantastic vaccine. I mean, I think if we can put a man on the moon, we can get a vaccine. I'm very, very hopeful that this hopefully will blow over. But you never know. I mean, it's unprecedented times, and it's an ever-changing situation every single day. But it could well be. And it also could be, that we start to have big city marathons in a different way too, that maybe we'll have to all keep within a distance and run throughout the day or in smaller groups. Right. But hopefully by that time the vaccine will be here.
I'm hoping, because we're planning on it. Toby, thank you so much for talking with us and spending your time with us. And we hope that you are—
My pleasure.
Oh, we miss you. We hope you're safe and well, and that this quarantine ends soon and you can go about your life and live it and keep helping people, because we're very proud whenever we read something, what you're doing. We're cheering for you always.
And likewise, me too for you. Take care of yourselves, huh?
Thank you, Toby. Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.